Imagine 4,000 priceless ancient artifacts were stolen from an African kingdom by an invading colonial empire, who not only plundered those artifacts, but also burned and looted the city, destroying structures that stood for centuries. Imagine those precious artifacts have been held captive by the countries that stole them and are displayed in their museums to this very day, with those countries refusing to return what they acknowledge they stole. Now imagine this is not fiction, but reality. Pay attention. This is one of the greatest kings in African history, but I'm sure most of you have never heard of him or his incredible courage. His name is Oba Ovonramwen of the Benin Kingdom. Most of my audience know I created a graphic novel called The Crusaders about a group of Nigerian siblings who go around the world on amazing adventures to reclaim African history. What you may not know is that Oba Ovonramwen inspired the creation of these authentic African heroes, and that the family in the Crusaders are descendants of the Benin Kingdom. Oba Ovonramwen's story is not just about Benin, but about all of us. A lot of you saw my video about the Ghana Ivory Coast Cocoa Wars and my video on the Nigeria Lithium Wars. Oba Ovonramwen was fighting the same battle for African sovereignty as the Nigerians and Ghanaians are now, and he was doing this over a century ago. Oba Ovonramwen Nobaisi ruled Benin from 1888 to 1897. All African names have meanings. Ovonramwen means the rising sun, and Nobaisi means which spreads over all. At the end of the 19th century, the Benin Kingdom had retained its independence from the British, while other tribes fell to the colonizers. Oba Ovonramwen stood firm and protected Benin with a monopoly over trade in rubber, palm oil, and ivory. The British Empire didn't like this. Not one bit. Vice Consul James Robert Phillips and Captain Galway pushed for the annexation of the Benin Empire and the ousting of the great king Oba Ovonramwen. As anyone who studies history knows, when the British Empire wanted something, they took it by any means necessary. In November 1896, Phillips visited the Oba over the trade agreement made that the Oba wasn't keeping. The Oba rebuffed him. The resources belonged to Benin, and the Oba would decide how they were traded, not the British. I depict this moment in the opening of episode 1 of The Crusaders' Hunt for the Sunblade. I believe the Oba knew the British weren't to be trusted, something King Koko of Nembe Brass and King Jaja of Opobo had discovered the hard way. I talked about this in my video of the origin of Nigeria, which you must watch if you haven't already. The information in that video will give you more context of why Oba Ovonramwen's story was not an isolated incident, and how the fall of other kings served as a warning of what the British Empire had in store for anyone that opposed them. But this king had the heart of a warrior, even in the face of Goliath. In January 1897, Phillips led an expedition with the alleged aim of negotiating with Oba Ovonramwen. The Oba was warned that this was a trick, and he preemptively ambushed the party, leaving almost none alive. I wanted to show how Oba Ovonramwen predicted the British Empire's first move and had a decision to make: strike or surrender. He chose to do something I'm certain he knew would result in retaliation. For my graphic novel, this was an important lesson about symbolism. It wasn't about winning for the Oba, it was about sending a message he knew other tribes would see. You can make the predator bleed. If it bleeds, we can kill it. The truth is, Phillips was setting a trap to catch the Oba and had hidden weapons in baggage with troops disguised as bearers. This is detailed in Sven Lindqvist's book, Exterminate All the Brutes, where he states Phillips was using the rules of negotiation to gain access to the palace and overthrow the king. In short, the British Empire tried to provoke the Oba to attack them, and thus give them an excuse to wipe him out, so they could take Benin's resources and no longer have to give the Benin people their fair share of the profits. When news of the Oba's victory over the initial hit squad got to London, the Oba Ovonramwen's situation became a matter of national pride for the crown. Where other kings had been open to negotiation, they had this Oba that would not hesitate to fight for his resources. As far as Ovonramwen was concerned, all the palm oil in Benin belonged to Benin. The British Empire could not allow an African kingdom to claim dominance over them, as this would set a precedent for other kings. The empire had to strike, and strike with fury. Later in 1897, the Benin Punitive Expedition, led by Harry Rawson, attacked the Benin Kingdom and burned the city. They stole countless bronzes, artifacts, and treasures, and also destroyed the city's fortifications. This was particularly significant as the Benin Kingdom is one of the oldest in human existence, and the Great Wall of Benin is one of the few man-made structures that can be seen from space. This structure is one of the great marvels of mankind and is as significant a feat of construction as the pyramids or the Sphinx for the sheer manpower necessary to construct it in an age before machinery. The British Empire reveled in their victory. Their ruse of diplomacy was gone as the Oba's attack had given them what they wanted, a reason to take from Benin what they didn't deserve. So that is how the kingdom of my ancestors burned under the cannon fire of a British armada. Oba Ovonramwen was exiled and the artifacts stolen and taken to museums all over Europe, where many of them sit to this day, with European governments refusing to return the stolen property. Remember the scene in Black Panther where Killmonger is talking about those masks?
That one's from the Edo people of Benin.
They were from the Benin Kingdom ruled by the great Oba Ovonramwen. This is an aspect of the story that truly bothers me. Patrons file into those museums every day to look upon that stolen property without knowing how they were acquired. Can you imagine thieves in any society setting up a display and charging people to come and see those items while never denying they stole them? Yes, they aren't pretending this isn't what it is. What's even more astounding is that the British Museum has set out stipulations on how and when a portion of these artifacts will be returned to Nigeria. Not permanently, mind you, but as a loan. So the people who stole our artifacts are loaning us the items and expect them to be returned back to them. In addition, the British Museum laid out terms of the standard of facilities Edo State needs to have at our museum to be suitable for housing our own property. France have actually been much better about this situation in that Macron has been pushing to change the laws to allow all stolen artifacts to be returned to countries that request them. Say what you will about France, because Lord knows they've been terrible, but this gesture by Macron is exactly how it should be. It's down to Nigerians to demand the stolen property back. This is not about Benin, but about symbolizing we are no longer colonial children. How is it that Oba Ovonramwen had the guts to stand up for that principle over 100 years ago, but we can't? This situation is symbolic of the vestiges of colonialism for all of Africa, not just Nigeria. All 4,000 artifacts must be returned to Edo State and the Benin Kingdom immediately. As long as the British Museum displays stolen property, everyone that walks through those doors should know they're paying thieves to view contraband that they brazenly refuse to return. And if we are the generation that gets our ancestors' property back, then that is how it needs to be. I realized that the Oba's story was speaking to me. My ancestor was speaking to me. His actions cannot be in vain. They must inspire heroes to rise. 100 years later, yes, but they will rise. The Crusaders are charged with one task: go out into the world and take back every piece of African history stolen from us and bring it back. Bring it all back. Can we take a moment to give Michael B. Jordan all the respect he deserves? Killmonger is honestly one of my favorite comic book heroes from movies. I saw so much potential in what he was in Black Panther, the only character that made sense in the context of my experience as an African and descendant of Benin. When Killmonger spoke, he was speaking for Oba Ovonramwen, he was speaking for black people, he was speaking for Africa. Killmonger is the greatest black superhero ever put on film. A lot of people just don't realize it. That is why he was made a villain, because his ethos is the only one that means anything to Africa. You don't ask for what is yours, you take what is yours. The British and the Americans turn such stories of taking what is theirs into legend. And they teach those stories not only to their children, but to ours. But we learn nothing about our own. Episode 1 of The Crusaders is available via the link on my page. Consider getting a copy and make sure your children read it too. Your purchase of a physical or digital copy, sharing, talking about it, and reviewing it all make a difference. Whether The Crusaders sells 1 copy or 1,000,000, creating it has been an amazing experience. To see and read the reactions of fans is one of the most rewarding feelings I have ever had as an artist.
This is a good looking book. Nice and sleek. I like how shiny it is. It just looks, the entire book just looks like value. The colors, amazing, just pops off the page. And the story, it's a great story. Looking forward to episode 2.
I'm excited about where the Okalo family will go next and what they can teach everyone about African history as they discover their heritage for themselves.